he walked outside of his house, and then he was lifted up, and then he encountered a beautiful ET race that's like 9 or 10 foot tall, like blonde, very beautiful, angelic looking, wearing spacesuit. They can communicate through telepathy. They can perform all the miracles that's performed by Christ, as documented in the ancient scriptures in the Bible. For example, they can materialize objects, they can project images, and the people there are really beautiful, extremely beautiful, tall, young, and energetic, and they never age because they can regenerate body tissues and cells at their will. They can also make an adult human being within 24 hours. They're omnipotent beings. So the astronauts saw ETs on the moon, and they were warned off from the moon. And this is why we have not been back to the moon in 50 years. They have been guiding us throughout history. The most recent event would be during World War II, in which they prevented Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb.
Today we are talking with Samuel Chong. He is a certified court interpreter and Chinese translator. He has interpreted a number of books, namely the one that we will be discussing today called the Thiaoouba Prophecy, which, thanks to Samuel, became a bestseller in China and Taiwan. The book outlines author Michele Desmarquet's personal experience with an ET race after being taken off planet to show answers to some of the mysteries of the universe. We are really looking forward to hearing more from him today. So welcome, Samuel. We are happy to have you join us.
Oh, thanks for having me here.
Well, first of all, this is a completely fascinating book. Actually, I have it right here. And so for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to read it yet, I highly recommend it. It came across my radar just about 2 years ago, and I just found it incredibly interesting. And Samuel, you clearly obviously felt it was very interesting, and you're very passionate about it as well. You've even called it, I believe, life-changing at some point. So can you tell us what drew you to this book, and how has it affected your life?
Well, I was always fascinated by the mysteries in the world, like the Bermuda Triangle, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the stories in the Bible. I always wanted to find out what's really going on. And I was hoping that I can get the answer from somewhere. I thought that if the ETs could come and visit us in the past, and nowadays they must have advanced technologies, so we can just learn from them and then be various like students and learning the knowledge from the professors. So I was searching subconsciously for a book written by ET contactees, detailing their experience of interactions with the ETs. So I accidentally found this book on Amazon about, I would say 10 years ago. And I was amazed by the details and also the logical explanations of some of the paranormal events that happened on Earth, especially related to the stories in the Bible. So I couldn't put the book down. I decided to track the author down. And it's been a life-changing experience because after I met the author, I learned some of the things that he didn't put in the book. That's actually the driving force for me to came out in public and to promote the messages in the book to as many people as possible, because it's not just something that relates to the destiny of Americans or the Chinese or Japanese. It relates to the future of mankind, the human race on Earth. So I think it's important for us to get the most out of the book as much as possible.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the author, Michele, and share with us how this experience began for him?
Yes, he passed away about 6 years ago, and he was a regular landscaper in Australia, a French Australian who was living a normal life throughout his life. One day in the middle of the night in 1987, he just suddenly had this kind of a unique experience. Waking up, like he didn't know why he woke up, but in the middle of the night, he wrote a note to his wife that he will be gone for 10 days. And then there's absolutely no need to worry about him. And then he didn't know why, but he walked outside of his house, and then he was lifted up. And then he encountered a beautiful ET race that's like 9 or 10 foot tall, like blonde, very beautiful, angelic looking, wearing spacesuit. And then he was told that he was going to be on this journey for about 9 or 10 days or so, and he'll be back without any issues. So he went on this journey, and he was told about the history of Earth, the history of mankind, where we all came from, like the yellows, the blacks, the Caucasians, the Jewish people, Polynesians. And then he was told about the meaning of life, and also some of the things that we have always been wondering about, like what happened to the people, planes or ships that just vanished near the Bermuda Triangle. What about the national parks in the US? Like if you read the book Missing 411 by David Paulides, you're going to know that a lot of people who hike in the national parks just gone vanished under strange circumstances. And also some people claim that they see ghosts. What are the ghosts? Like, do they really exist, and what are they? And also he was told about the real dangers on Earth, like number 1 being money, number 2 being politicians, number 3 journalists and drugs, number 4 religions. And then he was told a lot of other things, like what really happened during Exodus, what about Sodom and Gomorrah, and who is Jesus and who is Christ, and why there's a tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan, that most people don't know about, but people can verify and do a search on the internet. So a lot of the things can be verified and can be proven scientifically. There are so many details in the book that I did a lot of additional research and found them to be fascinating and can be validated. And the book actually serves as a warning to the people on Earth nowadays, because the book is actually not a prophecy, but it's like a message, sending us messages so that we can change the way we live our lives, so that we can have a better future.
What did his wife think about a note saying he'd be gone for 10 days? And was he actually gone the 10 days? Because sometimes we hear when people are gone, they're gone for, they feel like months, and then they come back and they've only been gone a couple of minutes. So what was that like for his wife? And was he gone for the actual 10 days?
So Michele Desmarquet has a wife, which he later divorced because of some personal issues or personality differences. And she didn't really believe what happened to him. She thought that he was having an affair with another woman. And she still thinks so nowadays. And he has 2 children, 1 daughter, 1 son. And Peter Desmarquet, the son, in which I have contact with, verified that Michele Desmarquet was gone indeed for 10 days, because he was living with him at that time. And then his father disappeared for 10 days. And then Michele Desmarquet, he didn't have a lot of education, but he had a sharp mind. He played chess really well, but he didn't know how to use technologies. Like, he didn't know how to use computer. He didn't know how to type that well, and he probably didn't know how to use a cell phone. So he just this kind of traditional landscaper, very alert, very smart. But on the other hand, he never traveled to, for example, Japan or other countries that mentioned in the book.
I know you just mentioned that this is more of a warning for humanity versus a prophecy, but I'm wondering, what is the reason that Michele felt compelled to write the book? Is it for the purpose of a warning, or was there another reason that was given to him by the ETs to write the book?
It's actually an order given by the ETs to him to write a book reporting everything that he saw, heard, or experienced. So this is like an order. He didn't have any choice. He was led to their spaceship, and he didn't really have a choice at that time. But then he enjoyed his entire experience, his 9-day journey over there. And then he had this kind of mission to write a book. And for a lot of the details in the book, he actually, after he came back, when he lost memory, or when he didn't remember the details, the information or pictures would show up in his mind or in his brain. It's just like the information or pictures or his personal experiences on the planet was downloaded to him, or maybe he downloaded the information or was uploaded to his brain. So this is why he said he was able to remember so many details as he wrote in the book.
It seems like he may have been chosen for this by the Thiaoubans. Is that correct to say? I mean, did he have a connection with that species in some way?
Well, he was chosen for, I think, a few reasons. Number one reason is that he is a man of action. So whenever they said something, he took actions immediately. And the other reason is that he had 80 past lives already. So this is his 81st lifetime on Earth or on other planets too. Only people like him can survive for 9 days on their planet. I don't know the reason. Probably had something to do with vibrations. It's just my conjecture or guess. And the third reason is that they chose him, not a politician, not a ufologist, because he didn't have any preconceived notions. He's just like a blank piece of paper to write on. So he would report accurately what he saw without any personal agenda.
And did he say anything about what the planet that he was on was like that they took him to?
Yes, it's just like a paradise. It's a very beautiful planet. From afar, he saw a golden mist surrounding the planet. So this is why he called the planet the Golden Planet. And the people there are really beautiful, extremely beautiful, tall, kind of like young and energetic, and they never age because they can regenerate body tissues and cells at their will. So they're forever looking like in their 30s. So they can live forever, and they can decide whether they want to have children or not. They're hermaphrodites, meaning that they're both male and female. They have both male and female sexual organs. They can communicate through telepathy. They can perform all the miracles that's performed by Christ, as documented in the ancient scriptures in the Bible. For example, they can materialize objects. They can project images onto Michele Desmarquet. They can also kind of heal the wounds or injuries that Michele had. They can also make an adult human being within 24 hours. So they're omnipotent beings, and they actually have been guiding us throughout history. They actually explained during the events of Sodom and Gomorrah what happened, and also the other events as documented in the Old and New Testaments. So this is fascinating book and explains all their involvement with us throughout history, and they actually live among us as well nowadays. It's just that it's not the time for them to show up publicly yet.
This sounds like a planet I'd like to live on.
Yes.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, it sounds amazing.
Sign me up.
Yes, exactly. After Michele Desmarquet came back, he really didn't want to come back. Actually, in the very beginning, he wanted to stay on the planet Thiaoouba forever because it's really like a paradise. Everything's so beautiful, colorful, and bright and shiny with high vibrations. And he was looking forward for Tao or the Thiaoubans to take him back to their planet until the day that he passed away. So when he was with me, he told me personally he was waiting for that day to happen.
So was he only taken one time off planet?
Only one time, yes. So you can see the picture that he had. I took his photo when I was in Vietnam, where he lived in his later years of his life. He was looking in the sky, kind of waiting for Tao or the Thiaoubans to take him back to their planet. He was hoping that he was very cynical to what was happening on Earth back then, and he was a little bit disappointed that not a lot of people took notice or paid attention to his book.
Oh, that makes me sad for him.
Right.
So what type of information does Michele share about planet Earth?
We all came from different planets originally. We didn't evolve from apes or gorillas. The blacks and the yellows came the earliest, about 1.35 million years ago, from a planet called Baccaratini. The blacks landed in what's now today's Australia, and the yellows, the Chinese, they landed in what's now today's southern Myanmar. And then they had a lot of kind of adaptations to the environment on Earth. There were a lot of mosquitoes on Earth back then. And the blacks were, because they lived in a tropical climate, and when they explored Africa, they brought a lot of mosquitoes back to Australia. So there was a lot of diseases due to the mosquitoes, and then they had to survive and respond to the challenges and the environments on Earth. They came to Earth because their original planet was dying. The core was cooling down, so that the core couldn't really capture electromagnetic force to capture the atmosphere. So afterwards, there was a reset because the asteroid hit Earth and split into three parts. The first part hit what's now today's Red Sea area, and the second part hits what's now today's East Timor area, and the third part hit what's now today's Galapagos Islands area. So if you go to Galapagos Island, you're going to see the aftermath of a small piece of asteroid hitting that area. So that's the first reset. So a lot of knowledge or technologies were lost because a lot of people died because of the event. And then everything restarted. Afterwards, there's another group of people that came to Earth from another planet. They landed on a continent that disappeared, the continent of Lemuria, or Mu, in the Pacific Ocean. So if you go to Hawaii or Easter Island, you're going to see that those islands were actually part of the continent of Lemuria. And the Polynesians nowadays are actually the descendants of the people from the planet Arima X3. So they, in the past, established very successful civilization in which there was no money. They just took whatever they needed from the marketplace. No one took advantage of each other because they were highly spiritual, and they had a lot of technologies such as anti-gravitational technologies and supersonic vibratory systems, so that they were able to cut the huge stones on Easter Island in a very precise manner. And then such technologies were passed on to the people on Atlantis, another ancient civilization. And it was actually Thoth, what the Egyptians now call the god, who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt about 17,000 years ago, using the same technologies that they learned from the people Lemuria. Unfortunately, about 14,500 years ago, there was an earthquake that sunk the entire continent of Lemuria into the ocean. And so that caused another great reset of civilizations, especially with the disappearance of Atlantis and the burning of the Library of Alexandria. A lot of the knowledge that we had in the ancient past was lost. So that's a second great reset. So everything started again, kind of. And the people from Atlantis and Lemuria didn't pass their knowledge, like anti-gravitational technology, their knowledge to other parts of the world. So this is why there's a kind of a disruption of the ancient technologies. And this is also why a lot of the folklore or legends in India, China, Native Americans, in which they say that they saw people flying in the sky, or there's a chariots of fire, things like that. So everything can be connected with this book.
I'm just curious because you mentioned a little while ago that these extraterrestrials came from another planet because they had some trouble on their planet. And I've heard this before. A lot of times people bring up the Anunnaki, and that's the story that I hear about them as well. Is there a connection in any way with this ET race and the Anunnaki, or could they have been the same people?
They're probably not the same people, but Anunnaki probably are the different kind of ET race, because Michele Desmarquet was shown like 147 corpses of different ETs on the planet Thiaoouba, because those people were kind of important people or figures on their planets, just like Christ to us, because he also saw the body of Jesus Christ or / Christ in the golden doko. And because those figures were kind of the spiritual leaders or fighters, leaders of the free world or something like that, very important people on different planets. So there must be different ET races on different planets. There are like 9 different categories of different planets in the universe. We people on Earth are living on category 1 planet, the lowest category, And the Thiaoubans live on category 9 planet, which is the highest category. So they are just like college professors guiding us and mentoring us in the right direction. And we are just like elementary school students learning the basics. There's nothing to be ashamed of being on a category 1 planet. And there are also different categories of planets in which people came from. For example, the ancient Hebrews came from the planet Hebra, and is a planet of a higher category. And so this actually explains why they're so unique and different from us. And this is not to be prejudicial, but this is according to the book.
So are we the only human race in the universe, or are there other humans on other planets? And if not, where did we come from?
Well, we came from the planet Baccaratini, the blacks and yellows, and the Caucasians came from a different planet. So we all came from different planets, and the blacks and the yellows came here because their planet was dying, original planet was dying, and also there was a group of people who lived on Mars before. About the same, like 1.35 million years ago. And Mars died off because the core cooled. So the people on Mars migrated to Earth. And they, according to Michele, lived in the Tibet area of China. The ancestors of the Polynesians came from the planet Arima X3, and they migrated to Earth because of the overpopulation issue on their planet. So people migrate to Earth because of different reasons. It doesn't really mention about being seeded by the ETs. I would say that God created all the planets, the stars, animals, plants, and also human beings. We are all created by the same creator, the great ether, some people would call God. And we are all like brothers or sisters having this common creator. I wouldn't say that the ETs seeded us. I would say God created all the human beings on Earth and on different planets. And we are definitely not alone. There are different human beings on different planets who look differently from us.
That makes a little bit more sense to me, because I always wondered if we all came from the same two people, Adam and Eve, per se, depending what you believe in, how did we end up looking so different? And I remember I asked that question in church one time, and someone said, it's the weather. I don't know what that means, but
that's such a weird answer.
I'm like, wait, I could go into what the details was, but I think it might be offensive. So I was like, okay, all right. Anyway, that brings me, you actually brought up a great point about God and what that is to everybody. Where does Jesus play a part in this, and who is he to us?
Yeah, it's very interesting that you asked that question, the earlier question, why we all look very differently. I had the same question when I was in church. I said, why did the Bible emphasize so much about the Jewish people? Why not the Chinese, not the people in Africa, not the Caucasians? Why the Middle East? Why? And they never gave me a very good explanation. I was not satisfied at all.
It wasn't the weather.
It's the weather.
right. So this book actually connects all the dots, especially the Bible, the Old and New Testament. Jesus was actually there are two beings, one Jesus, one Christ. When I was reading the Bible, I had the question, why Jesus never performed miracles before he began preaching? And all of a sudden, he was this kind of omnipotent person and began preaching. Why there's a sudden, there's no connection between the two parts of his life. So actually, according to this book, Jesus was indeed born out of Virgin Mary from the embryo implanted by the ETs from Thiaoouba into the uterus of Virgin Mary, just to show people at that time that someone extraordinary was going to be born this way, to fulfill the prophecy and to catch people's attention to this such unique event. A lot of the stories in the Bible regarding the events that Jesus was born was true. And King Herod indeed killed a lot of babies. And this book gives a very precise number. 2,606 babies were killed by King Herod. And then Jesus was born, and he was highly intelligent and spiritual, having a very profound conversation with the teachers of the temple, but he couldn't perform miracles. Because when the astral body, we have a physical body, we also have an astral body. When the astral body goes into the embryo to be reincarnated, it has to pass through what the ancient Nagas call the river of oblivion, forgetting everything that he or she learned in the past, forgetting all the knowledge that he or she accumulated to perform miracles. So this is why the young Jesus, even though highly intelligent and spiritual, he couldn't perform miracles. He went to India. This is why some people say that Jesus went to India and traveled to China and died in Japan. So if you search on the internet, the tomb of Jesus in Japan, you're going to find that a very detailed description of the tomb, actually 2 tombs, one for Jesus and one for his brother, which is also mentioned in the book Thiaoouba Prophecy, detailing how his brother was killed in China, how Jesus kind of brought a lock of his brother's hair to Japan and then buried the hair in the tomb next to his tomb. So very detailed description. Christ, on the other hand, the one who was killed on the cross and then resurrected 3 days after, this is true, by the way, was another figure in which the Theubans made to resemble the appearance of Jesus. So there were 2 beings at the same time, one Jesus, one Christ. And being one of the Theubans themselves, so the Christ figure, the figure that's Christ, was able to perform all the miracles because he remembered the knowledge to do so. He began preaching, and the reason why they sent Christ to us was because people in the past, as well as people nowadays, they're highly skeptical. They wouldn't believe his preachings unless he was able to perform all the miracles. So this is why they had to send one of their own just to perform miracles so that his preachings would be believed by the people at that time. So this is also why when Christ saw his mother, he didn't call his mother mother, he called his mother woman. So this is another question that I asked to my fellow friends in church when I was reading the Bible. This is really like calling one's mother woman is extremely disrespectful.
No.
No. Not a single language would mix up mother and woman because mother has a very special relationship with her son or daughter. So this is the reason I was really perplexed or puzzled by the explanations of the people in church. So Christ died on the cross, and this is actually his destiny because he previewed his life before coming to earth, just to show people through his resurrection that there's life after death and there's reincarnation. But as we all know, the concept of reincarnation was later removed by the Catholic Church councils from the Bible. And this book actually detailed and named specifically the 4 Catholic Church Council meetings that intentionally distorted the original meanings of the ancient scriptures for their benefit. So it's highly critical of the organized religions, not just Catholic Church, but also other religions too. They have similar issues. So that's why it's the number 4 danger on earth.
What religion was Michele prior to this encounter?
He didn't have any religion. If I asked him about it, he said he was more leaning towards Buddhism in that sense, but he wasn't really religious at all.
What you just said about the Immaculate Conception, what Christians would consider the Immaculate Conception, makes so much sense that it's actually in vitro fertilization. When I did hear that for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. There's so many mysteries that are in the Bible that probably can be explained by all of this, as long as you connect the dots and you do the research and you have an open mind about it. But it's just incredible because the more I hear about these things, the more I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it just resonates once you hear it.
Yes, exactly. And also the event mentioned during, like, after the birth of Jesus, the Star of Bethlehem, it actually happened, and that's actually the UFO, the spacecraft of the Thiaoubans. And actually, I was able, because I'm Chinese, and I did a lot of research on the astronomical records of the ancient Chinese history, and I was able to pinpoint the exact date of the birth of Jesus and the date of the
Really?
crucifixion and resurrection of Christ.
And I'm guessing it's not December 25th.
No, it's not. Definitely not. It's sometime in February,
Yeah.
the end of February. Yeah.
Interesting. I actually have heard that before too, that, we just kind of pick a date and it has nothing to do with what the actual event was. I just think there's a lot of things that are done on purpose in the name of religion, just to kind of guide us in a certain direction, which actually leads me to my next question. What information did Michele bring back about all the different religions we have in the world?
Well, what he mentioned was that he suggests people to be spiritual and not religious. So there's a difference between the two. And spirituality is something that we should strive for, to understand the meaning of life and to follow the teachings of Christ. The teachings of Christ is very different from following the priests or pastors of the church. So we should be spiritual and follow the teachings of Christ, but we should not be religious, following the intermediary agency who claim to be the representative of God or Christ. So the organized religions always tend to distort the original intentions of the spiritual masters of the past. For example, Buddha originally didn't want people to worship him. So this is why he prohibited people to make his image. But you see now the Chinese people, they kneel down to the statue of a Buddha. So it's things get distorted along the way with organized religions. So we should learn and to be compassionate to each other and love each other, because we're all created by the same creator. And also the meaning of life is also important, because we are here to learn spiritual lessons. Every challenge that we encounter is a valuable lesson for us to learn. And just like a mathematical problem to solve, it really depends on how we respond to the challenges or difficult situations. And through the process, we can learn spiritual lessons. So this is the essence of life. And then when we accumulate spiritual lessons, we send the positive experiences to our higher self through our astral body, so that we can remember the compassionate experiences or loving experiences that we had on earth or in this lifetime. When we die, we give up our physical body. Our astral body leaves the physical body, and then we are able to reveal all the things we did in this lifetime. This has actually been verified by people who have had near-death experiences. And we are able to feel and experience everything that happened then. Like, for example, if I hit a person, not only will I be able to experience my feeling, but I'm also able to experience the person I hit, how he or she felt at that moment of time. It's like a holographic film, but one would be able to experience everything that all the people experienced at that moment of time, so that we can learn how we did in the lifetime. We can evaluate how we did, and we are not going to be judged by anyone else but ourselves. So once we learned the things that we needed to improve, then we would be able to choose how we reincarnate in the next lifetime. For example, if I needed to learn how to appreciate the love given by my parents, then I would be able to choose a lifetime that would be more appropriate to learn this lesson. So we determine our future reincarnations. For example, if Hitler, after he dies, he would be able to really experience all the pains and sufferings of the Jewish people due to the result of his actions. And he would be really remorseful, and he would be willing and wanting to experience all the pains of sufferings of the Jewish people when he reincarnates in the next lifetime. So this is how the cycle goes. So there's definitely an element of the karma, cause and effect. And so this is through this never-ending process, we evolve and we move up the ladder. So once we are ready, we move up to a category 2 planet until we move up to a category 9 planet. When that happens, we can unite and reunite with the great ether or the creator. And this is actually detailed in the book.
Can we skip a planet?
We can.
Can I just go to like 5 right now?
Yeah, it really depends on how you did in this lifetime. It's like a gradual process. Like the Buddha, like in India, he was an enlightened person. I think he definitely skipped a few categories, and probably he moved up to a category 7 or 9 planet for sure.
I think I'm doing okay. I think I deserve level 5 planet.
It is thought that much of technology that we have today came from off planet. What can you share about that?
I definitely agree that a lot of the technologies came from crashed ET spacecrafts. A lot of the research and developments that the government has been doing definitely show that this is the case. We also have ancient technologies or ancient knowledge that pass on to some of the Qigong masters of China and India. And I think that's the real knowledge that we should focus on. Now the technologies reverse engineered from the crashed ET spacecrafts. Because if you think about this, their spaceships crashed, indicating that their technologies are not that perfect. I mean, we should learn from the best. We should learn from the knowledge and technologies of the Thiaoubans, whose spacecraft never crashed on Earth because they're so perfect. They have the perfect knowledge. And also, just to give you a hint, some of the ancient knowledge that pass on to the Qigong masters of China or India is also learned by some of the secret societies that we always talk about, like the Illuminati. So I happened to accidentally stumble upon a different book that I translated from German to English, written by the former highest degree chair of the Illuminati, a secret society that was founded in Germany. And it talks about how he was able to develop the psychic abilities to see auras or the human energy fields, how he was able to use an ancient form of astrology to predict future events. Actually, the Thiaoubans also can do the same. How he was able to influence people's mind using his psychic abilities, and the Thiaoubans can do the same, and Christ can do the same too. How he was able to kind of materialize objects. The Thiaoubans can do that, and Christ can do that too, like materializing food and giving to the poor people, the people who were hungry. So a lot of dots can be connected, and I think it's important to realize that there's a bridge between science and spirituality, and I think we are getting there. A lot of people are realizing that, and some people are more open to that fact, and some are not. But I think the trend is there.
Can you tell us anything that was shared about our monetary system, and if that's going anywhere with the human race moving forward?
This is a very interesting question. Michele Desmarquet, a very important question too. Michele Desmarquet was told by Tao, the Thiaoban, his mentor, that there are 12 families that are running everything behind the scenes. And the 12 families are the financiers, the people who have a lot of financial power. I asked him, like, which 12? I want to be specific, and he never responded to me. I don't know if he knew that, but I did my own research. The financial system in the world does not appear to be going anywhere unless people wake up. And people like in the financial service industry kind of know something, probably know how the system works a little bit, but they don't realize that the Federal Reserve of the U.S. They have private shareholders, like the major banks are the shareholders of the Fed, and there's also the International Bank of Settlements, and that's kind of composed of the central banks around the world. And I would suggest people to listen to or watch the interviews of Ronald Bernard, a former Dutch banker who used to work for members of the Illuminati. And he explains in detail how the International Bank of Settlements works and how the central banks around the world work. This is his personal experience. I also have my personal experience, which is really unique. And I think because Tara read the book, I think I can share my personal experience is that
Please.
there is indeed an organization that's running everything behind the scenes. And I have a friend in Northern California who called me after he read the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, saying that he was able to levitate when he was young. And incidentally, and he didn't know why, he was approached by a lot of different groups of people, one of which is a very mysterious person in Hong Kong that he accidentally met through different referrals of high-level people, either in the government or in the private sector, that told him a lot of the things they were able to do through the financial system and through the central banks. My friend didn't believe any of this. It happened actually in the 2010 or 2011 or so. He didn't believe any of this. He thought the central bank is just a central bank run by government and supplying money. And he didn't believe that it's run by a small group of people. And the person he met, in order to convince my friend, told him that if you don't believe me, give me your card and I'm going to deposit $5 billion to your bank account just to show our ability. So my friend did give him his card, and then he did see $5 billion in his bank account. And then, so this really happened to him.
Did he keep it there?
No, he didn't. It actually.
How long did it stay there? I mean, I would go on a
I
shopping
know.
spree before that money got taken.
Just in order to convince him, as long as he saw that number. But if you listen to the videos of another Chinese, another person, a Chinese whistleblower who is currently in jail right now, he actually has had certain connection to this group of people, like indirectly through this group of people, and he actually witnessed and accounted for like more than $5 billion transactions into the accounts of the children of Chinese leaders and things like that, and it would send alarms to regular accounts to a lot of like people like us, but there are certain like private banking accounts that are known for such large amount of transactions of this huge amounts. They're just like to us it's incredible, unbelievable, but to them it's just like regular transactions. You mentioned Bill Gates. Bill Gates is not the wealthiest person. I mean, he is far from that. The people that I'm talking about, they see Bill Gates just like a nobody. Like to them, they can create money out of nothing. And Bill Gates earns money through like having his company going public and software or something like that. But the people that I'm talking about, the people that the Chinese whistleblower talks about, the people that my friend met in Hong Kong, and the people that Ronald Bernard worked for, they can create money. They are the money supply of the world. So they are the top of the chain. They're the top of the pyramid. So this is one thing that people don't know about. Even if I tell to regular people, they wouldn't believe what I'm saying. But I'm saying this to you because you read the book. So I think there is certain foundation for you to believe the credibility of the people who experienced such things.
So your friend, the one that had this large cash injection into their account, was that money that was created, or was that money that came from the Federal Reserves
He wasn't told where the money came from. Among this group of people, they frequently had meetings with the members of the Federal Reserve. So there's a person in Hong Kong and also another person in Taiwan that had regular meetings with the Fed. My friend lost touch with this person because of an incident. The incident was, I'll give you some background information. They frequently had dinners or lunches together. And during one such event, that person showed him like his phone because the incoming phone call was happening. Someone was calling him. And on the ID, it says the name of the leader of China at that time. So a Chinese leader was calling a private person. This is unbelievable to all the people in China, almost all the people in China. Like the leader of China calling a private person on his cell phone. And that person took the phone call. And after like leaving that space, he took the phone call without having them listening to the phone call. He left that room and took the phone call. And then after he came back, he showed the other names, the former premier of China. So it showed that he has a lot of connections to the leaders of China at that time. And then one day after my friend came back to the US, he got a phone call from that person asking him to go back to China to meet with the current leader of China.
Wow.
To prevent censorship, I'm not going to say the name.
Sure.
And then my friend after and told him that I just got back from China, like in the US for only like a day or two or so. You're asking me to go back to China immediately to meet with him. At that time, he wasn't a leader of China. He wouldn't seem to be the next leader of China. And then that person in Hong Kong said, yes, please come because he's going to be the next leader of China. And he's going to launch the second cultural revolution. And my friend didn't believe anything that person said. So he refused to go with him. So from that day on, he lost touch with that person. And as we all know nowadays that he is now the leader of China and he is launching the second cultural revolution.
Wow.
So everything, so you can see the things.
What was the connection with your friend? Why was he so special to them?
So my friend was approached by different organizations. He was able to levitate when he was young. So it must be his aura. Because if you read the book 334 Lies, that book written by the former chair of the Illuminati, you don't join them. They select you because they can see how you are, how you would respond to certain situations. If you have the potential to develop the psychic ability that they have. So my friend must have this kind of human energy field that they perceive to be one of them, to have the potential to develop the psychic abilities. And my friend did have a lot of unique abilities, such as moving objects around, like teleporting objects.
Wow.
And he has certain energy that cannot be explained. And he is really into learning the potentials of the human psychic abilities.
I wonder if he regrets the decision to pass up on the opportunity.
No, he doesn't. He didn't regret because in his mind, those people are extremely dangerous people. Like they would be able to like eliminate a person at will. If he made a small mistake or not listening to their orders, it would disappear. Like they have the ability to do that, so he didn't regret that.
Was there anything that Michele mentioned about keeping ourselves healthy?
Yes, after he came back, he just suggests people to practice yoga to improve the energy flow of the chakras. So he suggested people to practice the Tibetan 5 rites, RITES, the Tibetan 5 rites. So it's a yoga system, it's a yoga practice that's aimed at moving or energizing the chakra points of the human body. And also, I would suggest people to pay attention to the diets. This is my personal suggestion, to follow the suggestions of the medical medium Anthony William, because I think his ideas are really reasonable and logical. And also with the situation with the financial system, how we should respond to the situation. Even like if you see the members of the Illuminati having so much psychic powers and having tremendous amount of knowledge to predict the events in the future, they are afraid of the power of the people, the collective consciousness of the people. If we act together, then there's nothing that they can do about it, no matter how strong their psychic abilities. But we need to wake up and to act collectively. This is also the solution and suggestion given by the Thiaoubans in the book Thiaoouba Prophecy. We need to wake up and to have the collective consciousness use nonviolent resistance to go against tyranny in the world. The book Thiaoouba Prophecy gives a very good example of an event that happened on a different planet in which a country was ruled by a dictatorship government. It only took about 4 people to wake people up. The 4 people protested in front of the palace of the government, and they preached about love and spirituality, but they got killed by the guards or the soldiers of the government. They realized what was happening, and they united together. All the people joined force, the police, the doctors, the lawyers, and all the people joined force. They had a nonviolent resistance, a nonviolent strike. And the government in which people were highly spiritual. If you think about this, it makes perfect sense. The 12 families or the small group of financiers, they rely on us to profit themselves. They rely on the slave labor of us to profit their businesses. If we stop working for them, we, the common people, will lose very little because we have very little to lose. But this group of people, they have a tremendous amount of wealth to lose without us working for them. So it makes perfect sense. It's just how we can wake people up, how we can act together non-violently. That's the key to make it happen.
Is there any suggestions that Michele came back with that we can put into action in our everyday lives to move in that direction?
Yeah, just to imitate what Gandhi or Martin Luther King did, nonviolent resistance, love, spirituality, compassion, and give knowledge to the people so that they can wake up and act. So this is the best way to go about it. And if you look at history, great revolutions never came from top down. It's always like a grassroots movement from bottom up. So it's important to wake the people up and not to have any wishful thinkings that the government or specific leader is going to make the change. The change comes from the people.
I'm going to ask another question because I just am very curious about it. And I believe that Michele did come back with some information about the moon, perhaps. I know a lot of people, I've heard speculation that it's a satellite. Other people have speculated that it's a spacecraft or it's just a planet. And so I'm curious, do you have any information to share about our moon?
Yes, the moon was actually captured by Earth because of the gravity of Earth. Okay. And yes, we did go to the moon, but there's a but. The US government had a backup plan just in case something happened. So they made a film in Hollywood. And when the astronaut landed on the moon, they saw the ETs, and this is just according to a different source of information. They saw the ETs and the broadcast was cut off. So they replaced what was happening on the moon to the film that they made in Hollywood. So the astronauts saw ETs on the moon and they were warned off from the moon. And this is why we have not been back to the moon in 50 years, even though the technology is more advanced and the cost of going to the moon is much cheaper and lower than the past. There are ET bases on the far side or the back side of the moon because when the people from Arima X3 was migrating themselves to Lemuria, they encountered resistance from a small group of Chinese people who was living on the northwestern corner of that continent. So they retreated back to the far side of the moon and built ET bases so that they can migrate their people and materials face by face. So this is why people say, oh, there are artificial structures on the far side of the moon. Yes, there are. They were built by the ETs, according to the book Thiaoouba Prophecy.
I've actually heard that before from other sources as well, a specific military source for the US. So I do believe that's true also. And just a couple final questions for you, Samuel. Are we getting any help from our ET friends on Earth? Are they kind of guiding us through the growth of humanity, through the raising of our consciousness? Have you heard anything about that from Michele?
Yes, they have been guiding us throughout history. The most recent event would be during World War II, in which they prevented Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. And I can elaborate on that, but this is what happened. Dr. Heisenberg wasn't able to move forward with his plan to develop the atomic bomb because he made a very stupid miscalculation. I wonder how that happened. That's actually probably due to the intervention of our friend ETs. And they help us indirectly, and I think they're still helping us. They want us to solve the problems on our own because that way we can learn more and we can learn more effectively. It's just like a parent trying to teach his son the solution of how to solve a math problem. He can give the answer to his son, but it'll be better for his son to solve on his own through the basic principles given by his father. So this is the way to do that. His son can learn more effectively on his own rather than having the solution given to him. It's also just like another analogy. A biologist was trying to help a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. It's a very rare species of butterfly. So he opened the cocoon up, so the butterfly came out. But unfortunately, the butterfly couldn't fly because the butterfly has to go through the struggling process, opening the cocoon on its own in order to fly. So similarly, we human beings on Earth have to go through this struggling process on our own in order to survive long-term on this planet.
Unfortunately, that seems to be the truth. We'll have to learn our own lessons. Well, Samuel, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your insights with us about this amazing book. And we just appreciate your dedication to bringing this information forward for humanity. I think it's really important information. And for anyone listening who's interested in getting the book, you can find it on Amazon. We highly recommend it. And it's also available now on Audible, which is exciting. So Samuel also has a website, and we'll include those links in the description below. But before we wrap up, Samuel, are there any final words that you would like to leave us with today?
When you encounter challenges in life, the best way to respond to the challenges is to look inside for answers and never follow a specific religious leader or the government or the media, because the kingdom of God is within you. You can meditate, you can pray, or you can have a good night of sleep so that your astral body can connect to your higher self. If the solution is good for your spiritual development, the solution will be given to you. So always look inside for answers and not outside.
I think those are great words to live by, and we appreciate those thoughts. And thank you for sharing this knowledge with us, Samuel. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Samuel.